Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Gibbs. Hey, I'm recording ahead of time today because I'm actually on vacation. We have something very special planned for the evening. So going to record ahead of time. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and I can answer them next week when I do part 2 of PCOS. So today we are going to discuss PCOS. What is it? From a hormone perspective. And we'll go into what it is, how to tell if you have it, and what you can do about it, because there is really actually a lot that you can do about it on your own without a doctor's help. So if you're listening to this and you're not a physician, please keep in mind scientific proof is not nearly as black and white as people think. And in order to make treatment decisions for individual people, sometimes we have to consider evidence that's not nearly as absolute as we would like. This is not meant to be medical advice, and you should consult your own physician for any medical issues or diagnosis you may have. All right, so what is PCOS? Well, PCOS stands for Polycystic Ovary Syndrome. Bottom line, it's a hormone disorder. Yes, one of the changes is that you have multiple ovarian follicles that are not ruptured, cysts, so to speak, but at its core, it is a hormone imbalance. So, what are the symptoms of PCOS? Well, acne in weird places like on your back, on your arms, and then on your chin and on your face. Male pattern hair loss, where you lose the hair up into your hairline this way, and facial hair growth, like male pattern facial hair growth, fluctuations in weight, arthritis symptoms, infertility, painful ovarian cysts, and short, painful menstrual cycles. There's also some neurologic effects of depression, anxiety, and then easy weight gain, and then digestive issues, even in people who have PCOS who are thin. Excuse me. But many people with PCOS find that they have a fairly dramatic tendency towards central body and abdominal obesity. So, what's going on in PCOS? Well, remember how we said in a previous discussion how high cortisol or stress causes high cortisol in your body, can make you more insulin resistant. And that's a defense mechanism in order to help you with your fight or flight because it increases the availability of sugar to your muscles. Well, this is one of the ways that stress and insulin resistance can. So many integrative practitioners use the term estrogen dominance to describe PCOS, and they say it's because you don't have enough progesterone, and they try to treat people just by adding a bunch more progesterone. But study after study cannot really relate the absolute levels of progesterone in your body to someone who has or does not have PCOS. Okay, so what is really going on? And why is there less progesterone, maybe, and more estrogen? Well, the answer is actually more nuanced than that because the core problem in PCOS is insulin resistance and elevated serum insulin levels. So, way before you have diabetes or even prediabetes, people with this tendency have elevated insulin levels compared to the general population. So, women may know they have this because they've had gestational diabetes in the past with a pregnancy, or they've had bouts of hypoglycemia an hour or so after a high sugar load snack. And high insulin levels are actually directly responsible for most of the symptoms that we see in PCOS because high insulin levels cause an increase in the chemical LH. That's from your pituitary gland, and that's the chemical that's responsible for triggering ovulation in your body. And the pulse rate also goes up. And interestingly, this faster pulse rate means that your periods come quicker. And it means that the follicle containing the egg doesn't actually get a chance to rupture despite that elevated level of LH, and then it becomes a cyst. So this LH level can be measured. So LH divided by FSH, which is another pituitary chemical signaling your menstrual cycles. If that ratio is over 1.0, that's a hallmark of PCOS. All right, so these higher insulin levels, and insulin is basically a growth hormone. Higher insulin levels cause the ovarian theca cells to grow, and it causes what's called metaplasia. So this means hypergrowth, and those theca cells produce androgens, meaning testosterone. And high insulin levels also stimulate the growth of ovarian follicle granulosa cells, and those actually inhibit ovulation. So in a dose-dependent manner, the higher your insulin levels are, the more your ovulation is inhibited. And so those granulosa cells produce an enzyme, and that enzyme is called 5-alpha reductase. And high 5-alpha reductase enzyme has two problems that occur because of it. So 5-alpha reductase metabolizes our sex hormones. So the two that it metabolizes are, first of all, progesterone. And so, we said before that one of the defects is low progesterone. Well, what's happening there is the progesterone that you do have is being transformed by this 5-alpha reductase enzyme to something called allopregnanolone. And allopregnanolone is what's called a neurosteroid. It goes into your brain and it causes a lot of the symptoms of PMS and premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Also, 5-alpha reductase converts testosterone to dihydrotestosterone, and dihydrotestosterone is a much more potent androgen. And so it is responsible for the facial hair and then the loss of hair here and the acne and that are present in PCOS. Also, because insulin reduces sex hormone binding globulin, which is the protein that carries the testosterone around in your blood system, then your total testosterone level may look low, not only because it's being overconverted to dihydrotestosterone, but also because it's bound up in the sex hormone binding globulin. So unless your doctor knows to check free testosterone as well as total testosterone as well as DHT, it may look like your testosterone is actually lower than it really is. And then also with testosterone, there is a different enzyme that also goes higher in PCOS that converts more of the testosterone to even more estrogen. So our net effect is we have elevated estrogen, we have elevated testosterone and DHT, or it may not look like the testosterone is elevated, but it may be elevated anyway because it's all bound up. And then we have elevated allopregnanolone, that neurosteroid I was talking about. And then because there's never a corpus luteum to make it, you have to have ovulation before you get a corpus luteum. And since the corpus luteum produces the progesterone, then we have a net low level of progesterone. So anyway, that's a big mishmash of hormones, and the net effect is all the symptoms that we just talked about. All right, so that's it for today. So I'm Dr. Dana Gibbs. My new hormone management and thyroid management practice is now open, and you can request appointments at danagibbsmd.com. And we will talk again next week. I am so excited about this topic. So very excited to go into part 2, where we are going to talk about how to manage PCOS on your own. All right, take care, y'all.